All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the District of Brown Deer School Board meeting. I would like to be able to call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. Verification of a public notice. The meeting was publicly noticed. Verification of a quorum. We have all 7 board members in attendance with us this evening. Approval of the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved, Dr. Beadle.
All right, thank you very much, Felita. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second Dr. Beadle.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm missing one. 6. What am I missing? Stacy, I don't see you. Oh, there you go. Bingo, 7. All right. Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Our mission statement: together with our families and community, we will inspire students to be passionate learners, creative thinkers, and innovative leaders who enrich our world. All right. I do want to turn around and I do want to say some housekeeping things. For this meeting this evening, we will have a public comment section. So if there are any public comments, not questions, but public comments, please put those in the chat, and Ms. Lisa Zielinski will be monitoring that chat function until we get to that part of the agenda. All right. So again, public comments, any questions or any comments, any comments that you may have, please put those in the chat, and we will be able to have those taken care of and spoken at during public comments. All right, let's go to our business office of facilities report. Facilities and ground update. I know Jody isn't in right now. Would that be Ms. Dr. Kelsey Brown?
Yes, Dr. Beadle. Thank you and good evening, community members. Jody's report has been uploaded to Board Book. Board members, we hope that you had an opportunity to read her report, and we ask that if you have any questions based on the report, we will take that information back to Jody. Jody is attending a funeral this evening for one of our esteemed colleagues here in our school district who passed away on January 30th. With that being said, I would love for us to take a moment of silence on behalf of Kurt Mintzloff, who was our buildings and operations manager, just a great man who worked tirelessly for us here in the school district. He was a 20-year employee with Johnson Controls, and he did such great work. The board approved him actually becoming a Brown Deer employee in 2019. So if we could just take a moment of silence for Kurt Mintzloff, our buildings and operations manager, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. And if you have any questions regarding Jody's report, Kevin and or I will write those questions down and take them back to Ms. Schmeiska and make sure she follows up with the board.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kelsey Brown. Board members, any questions about facilities? Reading through it, self-explanatory. Jody and her team always do an excellent job of ensuring that everything that needs to be taken care of is taken care of, and our grounds are safe and clean, and everything taken care of at the utmost level. All right, let's go to our business office report. Mr. Klimick.
Good evening, members of the board. Just a couple of items this evening, just to let you know that we did complete our January pupil count 2 weeks ago. This is the second time each year we have to count students, and this is tied to our funding, this one more specifically to equalization aid. And I did provide you a chart with the changes from September to January. We did gain 20 seats within the district itself, 20 resident students that are now attending classes here. We gained 3 open enrollment, or more likely tuition waivers in this particular case that were incoming. We did also add 29 open enrollment and or tuition out. If you remember, last September, the number was relatively low, and then it jumped up almost immediately after we reported the third Friday count number, as I think other districts were reporting. So that wasn't a complete surprise to us. So our total FTE change is 46. Those two will be averaged out, so we'll end up about 1793 for the FTE count for January, and then that'll be averaged on a 3-year basis. And again, will be part of our equalization aid that'll be determined for next year. And I'll have a discussion about the impact of these numbers in our upcoming budget. We'll have that conversation in a couple of weeks, the next meeting. And then we just wanted to kind of let you and also our families know that we are also in the process of working through some requirements for the new updated pandemic electronic benefit transfer program, or PEBT as it's called. This was a program that was implemented last year during the height of the pandemic, providing families with financial compensation to help aid in the fact of kids not being able to be in school, where they would have access to free meals for lunches and breakfasts. Last year, it was a much more open program where I think there wasn't as much data required for it. For us this year, our business office has to go through and identify our families who qualify for free and reduced lunch, and then note which days they're absent from the district for COVID-related reasons. And we have to send that information to DPI and DHS, the Department of Health Services. And then based on that, what we send, we will be, or those organizations will be sending out those electronic benefits on cards to families beginning in March. So our first reporting period, which we're completing the reporting this week, is for August, September, and October of 2021. And then again, those payments will be distributed in March. So this is a kind of an alert to families who, for whatever reason, opted not to fill out the paperwork to attempt to qualify for free and reduced lunch. This is still an option at any point in time if their situation has changed or if they fail to do it. But this year, last year they allowed families to get claims retroactively. They're not doing that this year. So basically, if someone were to qualify for free and reduced lunch tomorrow, we would be counting the attendance for those children as of tomorrow. So there is no backdating of benefits. So just trying to let everybody know that if they feel that that's a benefit they may want to take advantage of, they should take care of that as soon as possible. You can reach out to our district registrar and file the paperwork necessary to make sure that they do qualify, and then they would be a part of future disbursements of funds going forward. So, but it's a lot of extra work this year. I think last year it was just basically reporting the number of days that we were in and out of session, or how many virtual days we had as a school district. And now we have to do more specific reporting on an individual student basis. So are there any questions about either of these items in the business office update?
I do have a question, and it is regarding the students who are enrolled in the, I believe, the virtual program, that KEEL program. Are those students afforded an opportunity to qualify for this program?
No, that purely virtual instruction like that, they would not qualify. It's only for those students who were registering for an in-person program and were unable to attend school because the school closed, they were tested positive for COVID, they had a close contact, or were quarantined for some other reason.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, that's the business office update.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Clemming. Let's go on to our treasurer's report.
I apologize. Because of the early date, we're not able to complete the treasurer's report reconciling the bank statement. So I will have that for you at the end of the month. We usually do it at the end of the month, but we're hoping we were going to squeeze it in at this time, but we're not quite ready yet.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. All right, let's go on to item number 3, engaged learners, our statewide testing discussion. Dr. Garrison.
1 second, Dr. Bill, as I get my screen together. My apologies. And so as we talk about our statewide testing, we have a calendar that we pretty much operate from here in the Brown Deer School District. This calendar is put together at the beginning of each year. And what you see here in front of you is a snapshot of kind of what we've already done as pertains to testing. The green is the areas in which we have already completed. Naturally, the yellow area is where we currently are. And then of course, the black areas are where we're still moving towards. The main thing that right now that we're actually in is our fast bridge testing for the winter. We have collected data from our fall to the winter, and there will be a report to the board as pertains to kind of where we are with our fast bridge testing and our overall results. With that being said, the next big test that's going to be coming up, of course, is our ACT testing. And ACT, we all know, is a statewide test that we're required to participate in, as well as getting up to that 95% test participation requirement. The Brown Deer School District has successfully done that 95% testing requirement, even last year when we were in our COVID protocols. This year, that is going to be our same goal, is to keep getting to that 95%, which I do believe we will make it accordingly. There are some new opportunities that can happen with ACT, even the possibilities of students taking the ACT test on a Saturday. That's not like 100% out there yet, but there's opportunities that the state is providing us with to make sure that all of our students are tested accordingly. Our KIL students who are in our KIL program, who are juniors, they will also take the ACT test, and those students will participate in the ACT test here on campus, similar to what they did when they were working on their exams. Exams were taken here in the district. And so we will afford the KIL students the opportunity to take their ACT test here on campus with our school district. And with that being said, again, this is just a calendar that we pretty much update everyone on as it stands, and I will take any questions from the board.
Board members, any questions in relationship to the school district assessment calendar? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, and thanks for the update, Dr. Garrison, and being able to give us that information. All right, our next phase, let's go on to our discussion of high school course updates. Dr. Kelsey Brown.
Yeah, that'll be me again, Dr. Brown. I mean, Dr. Beadle.
Okay, I'm sorry,
No
Dr.
problem.
Garrison.
No problem. I will start us off with saying that every year there is possible changes to a schedule or courses in our school district. And this is an opportunity for our high school principal, Ms. Brown, to kind of give us an update on some of the changes in which we are going to be moving forward with in our buildings. Next year for the 2022-2023 school year. And I will start off and then I'll turn it over to Mrs. Brown. Mrs. Brown.
Thank you, Dr. Garrison. Good evening, board, community members, school district employees. I just want to take a second to highlight some of the updates. I call them updates and not changes. We already have awesome programming in place, and we are just going to continue to update and progress as our students also progress at our high school. So can I move the slides? Can you go to the next slide for me?
No problem.
So just very brief, I would like to discuss our block schedule that we have, and also some additional courses that we're going to update for the upcoming school year. And then we are already projecting out a 2 through 5 year plan about additional courses that we will add the high school. And so I definitely have this slide, and I'm going to leave it up here, but I'm actually have a co-presenter, Mr. David Sampy. He is a teacher at Brown Deer High School. The reason that I wanted him to speak tonight about the AB schedule and our traditional block schedule is because both of these schedules have been at the high school, and he has had the opportunity to teach at the high school using both types of schedules. So not only is he going to walk us through some benefits and some cons of both schedules, but then He's also going to be able to talk about it personally because he's actually, had facilitated his lessons through both types of schedules. So Mr. Sampe, I saw you earlier. I hope you are still with us.
Yep, I'm here.
And I'm just going to turn it over to Mr. Sampe.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Brown. Yeah, I've been working in the district for 10 years, and the last 2 years have been on a solid block, and of course, the previous 8 were on an alternating block. So I have had some experience with both types of schedules. Mrs. Brown does have some descriptions of these types of schedules up here, but I'm just going to go through some of what I collected from my colleagues and what I know of regarding the benefits of an alternating block schedule and some of its challenges, and then some of the benefits of a solid block schedule and some of its challenges. Okay, so I'm going to start with the alternating block. This is what we used to have. It is not what we have now. But that would be a day, a school calendar where we basically have a black and gold day. We go back and forth, and the kids, there are 8 different class periods that they are in, 4 on a black day and 4 on a gold day. The benefits of that sort of a block schedule are that as the school year progresses and as each class progresses, the pace of the class is slower, but the rigor, of course, is still there, right? The class itself hasn't changed, but it's just at a slower pace. And for example, there's going to be 48 hours between classes when you meet. Say, if I meet my biology classes, I'm not going to see them again for 48 hours. And that actually offers more flexibility. For example, if a student has a busy night, they can wait to do their work outside of class, maybe for this, and do it on the second night because, maybe they have work or something busy with the family. Also, with those 48 hours between seeing students from one class to the next, students have more time in between my classes to learn the lesson, learn vocabulary, prepare for an assessment. So there's a lot of advantages there. Another big benefit to an alternating block is that many classes, and especially in the math department and world languages, they have content that really builds upon what has been previously learned. And if they have big gaps between when a course is offered, say, in a one semester 1 year, and then not until a semester the next year, that gap in learning is quite detrimental to the students. And this schedule would eliminate those gaps. And really getting to practice math or a language all year long is much more beneficial. As you know, in an alternating block, a full credit class will last all year long. And there are a couple classes in particular where students really need the full year to complete the full scope of material. And this is particularly in project-based classes. For example, in AP Art, students need to put together a portfolio, and it just takes time to do that. Project Lead the Way has those projects. That takes a long time to complete those projects. And in my own class, in our SMART team, when we research our protein and create a model and a poster in the details that we go into with that protein, it really takes the full year. So the alternating block is beneficial there. And then regarding the tests that we take throughout the year, and I'm talking about AP exams and also the ACT. If we have an alternating block, the AP exams, which are always in early May, all students will have been exposed to most of the material in all their subjects for their AP exams. And therefore, all students will have an equal opportunity to learn that material. Same thing with the ACT. Now that's earlier, right? March 8th this year. An alternating block allows students to still be exposed to most of the material in their subjects before taking that ACT. And again, all students will have that equal opportunity. As it is in a solid block, like for example, in Algebra 2 is when the students cover most of the material that is tested for on the ACT. Some students, of course, had Algebra 2 first semester. They're okay. They've got, about a month and a month and a half of a gap between when they took the class and the ACT. But other students that are just in Algebra 2 right now, they're only going to have about 5 weeks of that class, and then they need to take the ACT on all the material of that class. So obviously that's a bit more detrimental. Another benefit to an alternating block is that when a student has a teacher for an entire year, and vice versa, when a teacher has a student in their room, you can build a much better relationship with that student. And you keep getting to know them over a year's period of time versus just 4 months. Also, when you get to know all your students right away in the first year, there are just fewer students in the building that we teachers don't know during first semester, right? Because we're going to have all of our students as opposed to just half of the students. So another benefit to an alternating block is that whenever a teacher is asked to teach an overload in an alternating block, you'll be teaching 7 out of 8 classes every 2 days. And that is much better than teaching a solid 4 classes out of 4 periods every day all semester. I mean, the teachers that have an overload and they're teaching 4 out of 4, for example, some had that in first semester that I know of, they did not have a single minute in the entire semester to prepare for those classes. That's rough. So, as I'm sure you can probably guess. And the other nice thing about an alternating block is if a teacher has the same class on a black and a gold day, they can prep for that class once and then teach that lesson 2 days in a row. So that's a lot of benefits to that alternating block. There are some challenges to the alternating block. Students and teachers, of course, will have more classes going on simultaneously. For the students, it could be 6 or 7 or 8 classes instead of just 3 or 4. And likewise for the teachers. But the overall pace of those classes is a little bit slower, and that's probably a wash. I mean, really the only other challenge to an alternating block is waking up and knowing if it's a black day or a gold day. So sometimes you get kids walking into the wrong room in the morning, but usually that works itself out pretty well. There are a few things that should probably be considered equal. Students are going to have the same overall amount of work per year in both schedules. They're going to receive work at the same rate per class in both schedules. 3 to 4 classes worth of work per day. So that's about the same. But let me turn my attention to the solid block, which we're in now. Now, there are some benefits to it, right? Students and teachers only need to focus on 3 or 4 classes at a time. And everyone has the same schedule every day. So, it's kind of hard to get messed up on what your daily schedule is. And another benefit is that, a student could take multiple classes in one subject area in a year. For example, if they're really into tech ed, they could take Construction 1 and Construction 2 all in 1 year. Also, if a student perhaps failed a class from first semester, the guidance counselors could probably do something about that and get them re-enrolled in that class for some remediation, and they could try to get the credit that they missed out on first semester right away in second semester and still then be on pace for the coming year. Of course, when you double up in a particular subject area, you're probably not going to be taking much in another subject area. So there might be a gap in other subject areas. But let me list for you some of these challenges that we've had with the solid block, okay? One of the messages that I've gotten from a lot of students and a lot of teachers is that they just feel rushed. We cover 84 minutes of content every day. Teachers have to prepare 84 minutes of content every day, and with multiple preps, that can be quite a bit of work to do. A lot of times when we're going every day, you just can't slow down because if you need to complete the material for Algebra 1 or geometry in order to get to Algebra 2, you got to keep going at that pace. And so you still got to teach a full 84 minutes of lessons every day. And you got to keep going. The ACT and the AP exams are coming along. So again, because of those, you really can't slow down your teaching rate, and it really does move pretty quickly. Another challenge to this solid block is the fact that there are only 24 hours between classes. If a student is struggling with one lesson on one day, they have much less of a chance getting help from their teacher before the next class. But when there's 2 days, they got 48 hours, they probably have a better chance of getting help. And similarly, there's just less time between classes for students to actually complete assignments, practice, and study whenever there's out of work class being given. Imagine trying to master some new math problems or trying to practice a new song on an instrument. It just 48 hours is better than 24. So another thing to consider as a challenge for this solid block is when students have absences over multiple days. And we, of course, have seen that a lot with the COVID quarantines that have been going on. If you miss 5 days, a solid week, a student can miss a lot of material in these classes really quickly. I can go through an entire unit in 5 days because of the pace that we're at in the solid block. Can you imagine missing an entire unit and then coming back and having to catch that up? And not only that, but upon the student's return, they're trying to make up for all the stuff they missed, but the class they're in is still moving forward at 84 minutes of lesson per day. That really taxes a student's ability to catch up. So, a full credit course of class is, of course, done in the solid block. It's done in 18 weeks. And in some of those classes, it is tougher to get through the full scope of material, especially when there's outside work, kind of like the art classes and Project Lead the Way projects that I was mentioning before. The solid block, another challenge is the fact that it does create these gaps. Like there's some kids that took math in first semester of this year, and they might not have math again until second semester of next year. That's a full 12 calendar months off from math. And I see it in my own children's MAP scores. When there's a gap over the summer, those MAP scores go down, and those gaps definitely don't help that. So from the guidance department, they say that there's usually less flexibility in a solid block when creating student schedules. We have seen some situations where by chance, some students will have 3 or 4 of their core academic classes in one semester, and then have a lot of their electives in another semester. Can you imagine having like your AP government, your AP calc, and and your AP language all in one semester, but then having your choir and your Phi Ed and and maybe another class. It's obviously the loads there are going to be a little unbalanced. So when you have a solid block, those sorts of scheduling problems can arise. Also from the guidance department, they've reminded us that when a student registers late for the year, just getting going in high school, maybe they missed the first 2-3 weeks of school, they have missed a significant portion of each of those classes if they're coming and joining that class just 2 weeks late. I mean, in some of my classes, they would have missed a unit and a half already. So that's pretty tough. Again, with those tests, the challenge of a solid block, the AP exams, some kids, they took their AP class first semester and now they have to remember it all the way until May. That's a challenge. And I already talked about, this ACT in March, the challenge of either remembering it or not having had the majority of the class before they have to actually take the ACT. So another challenge is in the performance classes, such as choir, band, orchestra. In order to accommodate the shows and performances, those classes, they're just better when they're all year, so that the kids in theater can be with Mr. Schmitz, the kids in the band, can be with Mr. Brownfield and work on their music or their shows all year long, as opposed to trying to jam that all into one one semester. And so, again, I was talking about those big gaps, which is a challenge for the solid block, particularly in math, language, a little bit in science as well. I mean, biology and chemistry aren't exactly the same, but there is some overlap. And when there's a big gap from their math class one semester to the math class in the following year, those gaps are tough. So another thing, personally, you know, I'm in this job for the relationships. I like working with these teenagers. And if I only have a student for 18 weeks, it's hard to build a good relationship with them. And not only that, you have to start all over building totally new relationships right after the January exams. So, you know, if it's a 36-week course, it's so much nicer to build long-lasting relationships with those. And again, the challenge of a solid block for any teacher with an overload, they don't have a minute to plan in the particular semester where they have that overload. So I know a lot of teachers have had to consume a lot of chocolate just to keep their energy up in that semester where they have that overload. So those are the pros and cons. And if you'd like, I can forward you all a list. I do have this written down. But it's for those reasons that Mrs. Brown and I and several teachers are really advocating for the change to an alternating block in the upcoming school year. So thank you for your time and listening to me. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Sampe. Just want to continue on with the presentation, and if we have questions, hopefully we can have time to swing back. I was going to talk about our daily schedule next year for our students and our staff members, but Dr. Brown and Dr. Garrison are going to touch on this particular topic with the board at a different meeting. So I'm just going to keep moving with this slide. So this is really the meat of the presentation, really talking about our courses for the 22-23 school year. I just want to let everyone know that these courses have been added or updated to really continue on our path of rigor and providing our students the best opportunity to be successful in their post-secondary plans. So one course that we are going to add is AP Human Geography for all 10th grade students. We are going to offer AP Language as a new course. We are going to bring back public speaking. We are going to add a course called Creative Movement that is going to be taught by Signature Dance Company. We are going to continue with our course of AP Computer Science, but we are going to offer it as a telepresence. Right now, when students get to the point of AP Computer Science, they're usually doing it in an independent study type environment, but we are going to try to partner with other school districts in the surrounding area and be able to telepresence our kids into those classrooms for a better and more rich experience. We are going to add college and career readiness with it. Also has ACT preparation with our financial literacy course. We are going to, we have rigor in some of our honors courses, but to align our honor courses with our AP courses that we are going to offer, our honor courses will now become the College Board pre-AP courses. So we will offer pre-AP geometry with stats, and we will also offer College Board pre-algebra 2. We have, through our band program, we bought new equipment. So we will offer steel band as a new course, and all of our 9th graders will take Algebra 1, and we will discontinue the AB track of Algebra AB. We will also add IXL for all students as an enrichment course, because no matter where students are performing, there is practice in all content areas, including Spanish, and also it also has ACT prep. And so looking 2 to 5 years down the line, one of the pathways that we hope to add to Brown Deer High School is hospitality and tourism, really focusing on culinary arts. We would like to add industry style kitchen culinary arts program to the high school. We will also like to add the health science pathway and allow our students to end high school with a CNA certification. And we would also like to introduce our kids into the arts and technology communication pathways with a focus in music production, students that are interested in that. So if I could just summarize our points that we would like to the board tonight, we would like to make sure that high school is interested in moving to an AB block. That means we would like for our courses to run the entire school year. We would also like to add rigorous coursework for our students, not only just to prepare students for college and beyond, but we are really preparing our students to be critical thinkers and understand how to synthesize content to be the best possible workers they can be, and then also be the best possible college students and make sure that they're prepared. So those are the two main highlights that we wanted to offer tonight. And I am more than willing to answer any questions that you may have about the presentation for the high school.
Board members, questions for Principal Brown?
Luna.
I have a question. One of the new courses that you mentioned was that AP Human Geography. Can you
Yes.
speak a little bit more to that and how the decision behind having that be required for students?
I sure can, and thank you for asking that question. So as we looked at our offerings for our 10th grade students, usually our 10th grade students take world history, they take AP World. And so we were looking at a course that all of our students could participate in and almost serve as a gateway for that critical thinking pathway. And we thought that human geography would be the perfect course for our students because it offers that rigor that we want for students, but it's also an AP course that is known to be not easier, but more attainable for our students. If you look around at the surrounding districts in the area, most students in their other districts, if you look at Nicolay, our Wauwatosa, let's see, what other districts are around?
Mequon.
I'm sorry. Mequon, our Shorewoods, our Whitefish Bay, Menominee Falls. You could really see that AP Human Geography is actually offered to most 9th grade students. And so we are coming in with AP Human Geography at 10th grade to help our students be competitive with the offerings of other students that are also in high school. In addition, we want Brown Deer to move to the track. We are not preparing only our students for college and beyond. We are preparing future thinkers. And so
Oh, I think we lost Mrs. Brown. But I'll jump in and finish her statement. I think we are.
Okay, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was going to say, would you like me to finish up? We spoke earlier today about our.
Go ahead, Mrs.
presentation today.
Probst. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just finish up in Dr. Brown's vein that we spoke of earlier today, which is in terms of the human geo class, not only preparing kids for 2 or 4 year colleges, but also that idea of being able to be a critical thinker and solve problems. I think also the human geo speaks to, it speaks about environment, it speaks about land use, it speaks about people. So I think that it offers an opportunity for all students, but also just focusing on that critical thinking piece and making it accessible to all students. And our key thought as well behind that was to make sure that we can support all kids to know that they are AP students. And that's part of the thought process as well behind the AP Human Geo for 10th grade. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, that does. I'll just add a little bit more to the question. has there been thought given to, particularly if we're looking at having a student have the course the entire year, additional supports if there are students that the rigor may be a bit more for them to endure?
I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Brown. Sorry. I answered
you
a little
jumped-
bit for you.
Yeah,
Oh,
we jumped in.
that's teamwork. Good. Okay. Did you pick
Yes, we
up where I
did.
left off?
I
You
did.
did, Mrs. Brown. And the second part of her, I'm sorry, Mrs. Who asked the question?
Ms. Robinson.
Ms. Robinson. The
Yes.
second part of Mrs. Robinson's question was the possibility of adding supports to the classroom. And I'll just start off by saying that we do have our opportunities for study halls. Number one, those are part of high school course offerings. So there'll be opportunities there. We also have our high school HIP time. And then HIP, that is opportunity for students also to get opportunities with their teachers and provide additional support if needed through our HIP time that is scheduled during our school day in our high school. So those are just two opportunities, but go ahead, Mrs. Brown.
And I just want to add that we have a very skilled social studies teacher with AP experience that is going to teach the course. He knows how to scaffold this information to really help our students be successful. We do not want our students to be unsuccessful because we want them to know that they are very capable of this rigorous coursework. And not only are we going to offer outside supports, but I have been very clear with him that I want him to scaffold and make sure that the students are successful in the presentation of the materials and the different activities that they do. So we are going to work extremely hard to prove to the students that it may be more challenging, it may be different than the work that you're used to, but you can do this work. Another thing that I'm also doing is I want the social studies department to include these strategies, even if you're not teaching an AP course, because this critical thinking piece is good no matter what course you're teaching. So we are going to help our students be successful. We think that they can do this work. That's why we're presenting it. And if we need additional support so they are successful, I haven't gone to Dr. Brown yet if I have something good for kids, and she said no. So I know that she will continue on that path of helping me help the students be successful.
I just have
Right,
a quick
I was
question.
about to say, Miss Ashley, you had a question. Miss Ashley, then I think Nicole, were you next after that? And then Anita.
So my question has to do with just kind of measuring the success of the AB block. I mean, what's going to go into, whether this is a success or not. I know that at the top of the presentation, there was some discussion that you had done this before and then you moved back to traditional and then you're back here again. How do we measure the success going forward?
Okay, so we have to remember that we didn't make the change because it was not successful. We made the change because we entered a pandemic. And so virtual was fairly new to all of us. And so while we were learning not only for the teachers and being able to facilitate their lessons in a virtual environment, we were also concerned about the students being at home, families with multiple children, being able for the first time to actually learn everything online. And so we went to the traditional block, one, to decrease the number of courses that students had per day, and then also to decrease the number of courses that teachers had to teach throughout the day. So the change occurred because the situation that we were in our education changed, but now we're back face to face, and we really feel as though we need to go back to the environment that was really supportive for kids, which was the AB block.
Thank you.
My question kind of goes along with Felita's as well. I know that we did transition due to the pandemic, but I'm just wondering, because we have had a couple instances where we had to pivot this year in some of the schools, if that were to happen, is it realistic that we'll be able to say, okay, at this point, because teachers are now familiar with Google Classroom and how to teach virtually, is it realistic that they'll be able to handle that AB block and teaching without it being something where it's like, oh no, now we have to change it again?
That is a very good question. And so this whole entire process has been a learning experience, but I think one thing that our technology director has also learned that she has to stay one step ahead of us and being able to offer supports to the teachers in their classrooms and providing us the best equipment to be able to facilitate instruction in various environments. So right now, we are face to face, but Ms. Turner or Mrs. Turner is already looking at different cameras that we can have in our classrooms. So the students, if they are at home, can still see our screens in our classroom. So we are already planning for that transition if it occurs, and we are exploring better technology to help us do that. So if anything would change, I think that we are going to be in a position where we're already in front of it, and all we have to do is make that transition. And our kids right now, we're already into technology, and now we just added another, I guess, tool to their technology piece. And so most students don't have a problem facilitating anymore their classrooms on Google Classroom. So I think we will be in a good spot if the pandemic, if a new variant came out and we were at home again. I think we would be able to facilitate online instruction to a very high level for our students.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was one more,
Anita?
but
Anita?
Yes, my question, Mrs. Brown, thank you for the presentation. You as well, Mr. Sampe. I'm just curious to know, overall, how are your teachers feeling about this transition back to the AB schedule? What are their thoughts? Are they buying into making this change? Can you kind of elaborate a little bit for us?
thank you. That is a very good question. So I went to my staff and I was basically like, what do you want to do? If this is the best schedule for us, then we will keep it. If we would like to explore another type of scheduling, let's explore it. And it was really decided based on what the staff wanted. We had an opportunity, I told them you could present any kind of schedule you wanted, a 6-period day, an 8-period day, whatever you think would be best for kids. And what it basically came down to is that our staff wanted an AB day. And so that's what we're presenting to you. We were open to anything, not anything, but looking at the number of students in our building, we were willing to explore any schedule that would work with the number of students that we have at the high school. And when it came down to it, with our course offering the number of students, we feel the best plan for our students is to have an AB block scheduling instead of our traditional block that we are doing. And I have the staff members on the Brown Deer High School staff supporting that decision.
That's great. That's great. I appreciate hearing the teamwork and the team effort that went into making this decision. So that's great to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have one other question, and it piggybacks off of Anita's question in terms of the students and parents, and whether we've told them, and can you give us a gut check in terms of what their feelings are and how you're going to roll this out to them?
Thank you. Another very good question. So as an entire body, sorry, Luna.
I can start off with answer that question as well.
Okay.
I mean, we also have to remember that.
Luna's fine. Luna's doing all right.
Yeah, I think we also have to remember again, we switched to like Mrs. Brown stated, we moved to a different schedule due to the pandemic. This was the previous schedule that we was working from. I think now that we are kind of coming back to some sense of, I'm gonna say sense of normalcy during the pandemic, but now that we are moving to more of a lesser quarantine times and trying to get the heartbeat of what our students need, I believe this switch back to what we were currently working towards, the AB day, helps with that conversation. We will probably definitely have conversations with our parents, but as it pertains to the side-by-side that was in the presentation, students will still be able to get 8 credits in a year. And so it's not like as if students are going to get less in the school year, more so than they're going to be able to get the same amount of credits within the school year, except for now you get to see your teacher with, now you get to see your teacher and build those relationships over the course of a year instead of the possibilities of one semester, then I might not see you until my next school year. Those gaps that we talked about, that Mr. Sampe has eloquently stated, those are things that we do have to look at as pertains to our students' learning. However, again, this shift that we made to come back to our AB schedule was not to say that, as Mrs. Brown stated, from a deficit thought process, more so that we made this shift due to our COVID protocols and practices. Keeping students in certain cohorts on a daily measures was kind of the reason why we went to the shift last year to this year.
And I just want to add to that, our students did have questions because they were looking at it from a student mindset, like, oh, 4 classes, then now we're gonna have 8. And they were concerned about it. But I think it's all in just explaining to them, yes, you may have more classes, but you don't have that class every single day, because they were worried about the amount of homework they may have. It's still the same amount of homework. It's just you will have different classes on different days. But when it's all said and done, you get the same amount of homework. You're getting the same amount of credits. You just get more time in between each class. And so I think the same information, when we roll it out to our parents, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to have like a question answer and give the parents, our answers to those different type of questions. Will my child have more homework? Will my child be able to keep up? What if my child needs help? And so I usually create a monthly newsletter. As we get closer, I'm going to really solidify, like, this is what we're doing. And I'm going to have those questions answered in my newsletter for them, so they will have more information and have more of their questions answered. Because the students did have questions and they did have concerns, which were legitimate. They just needed they needed an explanation on how things are truly going to be the same. It's just going to look a little differently.
Thank you so much.
All right, I guess my question is, question number 1, I think this actually really looks good. It's gonna be a little bit more challenging for our students. With the addition of it being an AP mandatory, are we looking at that potentially that could be going towards a college credit, number 1? And then number 2, we know that AP classes are graded a little bit differently in the weight for GPA. So is this also going to be weighted the same as a regular AP class, to where the weight can be a little bit higher in relationship to a student's GPA, whether it just be just for that semester, for that year, or their cumulative GPA?
So I'm going to answer the latter part first. So the AP course will be graded on a weighted scale, just like all other AP courses. And can you restate the first part of your question again? I just want to make sure that I'm answering it correctly.
Would that also potentially, could it be potential towards college credit?
So this
If a
first
student
year,
takes, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Brown. My apologies.
okay.
I thought I was on mute.
Okay. This first year, we are not, I hate to say this, I want the kids to take the AP exam because they would have taken the AP course all year. And I think that they should take the AP exam just to see how they do, because if they pass the AP exam or not, it does not impact the grade that they take. And so he wants students to take the AP exam because who knows, they might pass the exam and then they'll be college credits that the district paid for. I think the piece of that we really have to talk is, will the district consider paying for the AP exam for all students? And we need to talk about, if we really want to grow our AP program, should we take away the cost issue of the exam? Because that may be a barrier for some students. But I say if you take the exam just to see what it is and you pass it, you get 3 free college credits. If you don't, you still get whatever grade you earned in the course, and there's no harm. So it can be for college credit or it cannot be. It's really kind of up to the student.
Also like to note to that just real quick, and then we can probably move forward with additional questions, but the College Board has also stated that taking the AP course is what they really want students to do versus the pressure behind taking the AP test. And so the College Board do believe that the courses that they offer better prepare students for whatever career path they choose, and taking those courses better prepares them for that. And so the test, although it is a positive from the college credit perspective, is not what they necessarily require or hang their hats on for the course.
Okay,
Great
so,
question. Great question, Ms. Beal.
all right, and so with that being said, then how much is the cost to be able to take the AP test?
AP tests are normally about $95 per test. It also depends on, well, about $95 per test, but some students may qualify for reduced prices based off of socioeconomic status.
Okay, all right, yeah, because I just think that anytime that we make something that would be mandatory for them to be able to do it, wouldn't it almost make it seem mandatory for us to have to pay for the test as well too? I mean, it only seems right. I mean, if we're making something that's going to be mandatory. So would that be something, Kevin, that we would have in the budget for all of our sophomores to be able to do that? Well, at least give them the opportunity or the option to be able to do that at no cost, since we're making it mandatory.
I would
we have
ask Dr. Beadle that you allow our team to come back and have that discussion based on what we know. We're looking, putting together the 22-23 budget and be able to bring a response back to you in an intelligent, because we don't have that information just yet, because we haven't had a discussion around. But what you're saying makes complete and total sense. And you know, I'm with you 100% regarding that. But I would ask that to allow us to come back, allow us to have the conversation as a team and bring the information back to the board. But I love your thinking and where you're going with that.
All right. Okay.
Me too, Dr. Vito.
All right. Sounds good. So we know we got our information item then for our next agenda. All right. Thank you. Any board members, any other questions for Mr. Sampe, Ms. Brown, Dr. Garrison in regards to this? All right. Appreciate I appreciate this update. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let's move on to our
Thank you, Ms.
social
Probst.
emotional update, Ms. Antadari.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to share my screen. Okay. All right, so good evening, everybody. I'm Dara Atandari, the Director of Pupil Services, and I'm here this evening to give an update about social and emotional learning within the district. And so I'm just going to do a quick overview, kind of go through some of the things that the social emotional learning team is doing to make school a great place for our students, and then to talk about some curriculum we are looking to purchase to make this an easier process for teachers and to be able to really do social emotional learning well with our students, and then to answer any questions you may have. So as we start this evening, I want to start with some guiding questions, which is really what our team does. And the guiding questions are, what is SEL, which SEL stands for Social Emotional Learning? Why does social emotional learning matter? And how can schools promote social emotional learning for students? So with these guiding questions in mind, we'll start at the beginning of the social emotional launch here in the school district of Brown Deer, which started the 2019-2020 school year when I first arrived. And it was really set up on this thought that social and emotional learning programs are essential for meeting the needs of all students. And so what we wanted to do was that we wanted to, number one, increase school supports for students and staff. We wanted to improve coordination and pathway to mental health services for our students and their families. We wanted to be able to provide staff and family training. We wanted to increase school-based activities. And at that time, we wanted to see how we could utilize what we now call the Dr. Deborah Kerr Community Room in the elementary school to not only service our staff and students, but make it available to our families in the Brown Deer community. And so we always talk about SEL. So when we talk about things, I think it's important that we have a working definition of what it is. And so what social and emotional learning is that it is a process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills that are necessary to understand and manage emotions. They set and achieve positive goals. They're able to feel and show empathy for others, and they're able to maintain positive relationships and make responsible decisions. And really at the forefront of what we do in our SEL team is that we are very, very intentional about showing the staff and the students not only how to develop these skills, but to create, cultivate, and sustain positive relationships. Because what we know is that when students have positive relationships with at least one adult through their school experience, that really can determine the trajectory, whether they're going to go on a positive route or maybe go down a negative path. Not only are we intentional about focusing on what social emotional learning means, but we want this to be something that is transformational. And when we talk about transformational SEL, we're really talking about a process where our students and our adults are building those strong, those respectful, those lasting relationships. They're also learning how to facilitate co-learning. And when we are talking about relationship building, we're doing a deep examination about root causes, about inequities, about things that are systemic, and how do we dismantle that. And we also are hoping that our students are able to learn those skills where they learn how to collaborate and come up with solutions so they become problem solvers. And they can apply this not only to their school community, but to the society at large. Since our district does have a focus on equity, we want SEL to be equitable because we really believe that when we change our educational systems, we can really start to take charge. We can start to, again, dismantle those systemic inequities, and we can be part of that leadership to make that change. And when we're thinking about relationships and making sure that we really are cohesive with our students and our families, it's important to know that children really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. And we see that day in and day out in the work we do here with our students. So just want to give you a little review about what our school district's pledge to equity is. And we said that the Brown Deer School District will walk together each step of the way with our community to make the lives of others better, to move forward in peace, and to create the best educational system possible. Together, we will be the change that will heal, restore, and achieve justice for all. We are a community and people of action, and together we will find a way. It's the Brown Deer way. So I know you eat, drink, and sleep this just like I do, but I just wanted to remind you, bring it back up for you so you don't forget. So as I stated, we launched our SEL department here in the district in the 2019-2020 school year. At that time, we had a director of social and emotional learning, and they were also the director for community partnerships. We had 2 SEL specialists. We had a district-wide collaborative work team. We were part of the COIN Mental Health Initiative pilot project. We did professional learning for school staff. We trained the SEL and the pupil services staff. We had the staff take the ACEs assessment, and we also piloted the Rethink Education curriculum in selected middle school classrooms. So this is all the work that we were engaged in when the pandemic hit and when we went on shutdown in March of 2020. So learning how to pivot along with everybody else for the 2021 in the 2021 school year, we decided to launch what we called our 3-year plan. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at the most important ways to be able to implement SEL district-wide. We use the CASEL framework, which has the 5 components of SEL. On the very first slide that you saw, that was the columns, it had those 5 components. And so within that, they have something called the 3 signature practices. So when we were thinking about ensuring that this would be systemic, we thought the best way to go would be to really share with all of our teaching staff the 3 signature practices, and then show them ways to implement it into their classroom instruction. The SEL team at that time created videos for teachers to be able to use because we had started school virtually, and then because we were hybrid, we wanted them to really be able to have a resource to go back to. We looked at identifying a mental health assessment to use with our students because when we conducted the Gallup survey, we found that students indicated that they had high degrees of depression and anxiety. So we were looking for a tool that our counselors, our social workers, and our school psychologists really could use to better help identify that, and then determine how to provide those wraparound supports for our students. In the 1920 school year, we also had a partnership with Pearls for Teen Girls. They were with us last school year, even though they were virtual all year. As stated, we did the Gallup survey. We piloted the DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, exclusively in our middle school. And we had cell groups, which was tier 2 support provided by our specialists. And for the first semester of last school year, we had staff engaged in Wellness Wednesdays. As you recall, students had an asynchronous day on Wednesday, so staff members had the opportunity to interact with therapists with our partnership with Jewish Family Services. And we did that for the first semester. So for social emotional learning for the current school year, we are really intentional about making sure that the 3 signature practices is embedded in all we do, as well as equitable SEL. The team shares resources and strategies and lessons for all staff members. They have come up with something called Fill Your Cup Champion, where they identify staff members who are engaged in SEL and recognize them for that. We have a shared SEL folder where staff members can access resources. We are working with administration at the various buildings to revise our current referral process. We're working with our school psychologists to develop a multi-level system of support for behavior. We continue to provide intervention groups. We are looking to pilot a SEL curriculum. And we are looking to provide professional development for our staff, specifically related to self-care, because we believe it's very important for staff to be able to take care of themselves so they can do the best work for our students. We continue to partner with mental health agencies to provide services, and we continue to focus on building teacher-student relationships and student-student relationships. So, again, these are the things that we do. In addition to things I've mentioned already, we are partnering with Strive 365, and we have Jewish Family Services and Lutheran Counseling and Family Services, as well as the African American Male and African American Female Institutes that we provide for our students here on campus. So you heard me talk about the 3 signature practices. I thought it was important to share with you what they are. The 3 signature practices is a framework that teachers can use while they are in class doing instruction. And what it is that the first thing is that you have a welcoming ritual. So they have a ritual every day that they would do where you welcome students into the classroom community to get them prepared to engage and to partake in whatever lessons that you're going to provide for them. You're going to provide engaging strategies, provide brain breaks and transitions. And then at the end, you just don't dismiss the students, but you have an optimistic closure, kind of review what you did. Sometimes teachers might use exit tickets, but the research has found that when instructors are engaged in the 3 signature practices, you have much better outcomes for students, not only academically, but for their wellness as well. And how do we do all of this work? We have a director of pupil services. This year, Dr. Brown was really nice to assign a pupil services coordinator who has really done a phenomenal job with assisting me to make sure that we do these things district-wide. That's Miss Leah Bishop. We have our school psychologist at the elementary school. We have Miss Katie Bachman, and at the middle high school, we have Becky Thiesfeld. We have 3 cell coaches this year. We have Mr. Tyrone Roan at the elementary school. We have Mr. Tyree Tucker at the middle school, and we have Mr. Jose Winston at the high school. We've done more collaborative work this year with our school counselors, which is really exciting. And we have Mr. Miller at elementary. We have Miss Reinabo at middle school, and at high school, we have Miss Appleby and Miss Fowdy. And then we have our 2 school social workers. At elementary school, we have Miss Tori Nelson, and at middle high school, we have Miss Rashonda Spencer. So everybody is doing a great job of working together. And even with all that, like, we still always have lots of work to do. But what I will say is that the team has really embraced this thought around social emotional learning wholeheartedly. And even if it is heavy lifting, they continue to do the work because they know how important it is, not only for the students, but also for our school community and our staff as well. So I talked a little bit about, we use the CASTLE framework, and we have 5 components. So what we actually are focusing on when we talk about social emotional learning is self-management. We have self-awareness. We have responsible decision-making. We have relationship skills, and we have social awareness. And if you remember earlier in the definition, it talked about, as we focus on these 5 components, then we are hoping that as individuals build skills, they are able to manage their emotions so they can be better at making better decisions. They can be better at cultivating and sustaining relationships. And so we would do that for all areas. And so some of the things that we have done this year, because we say we're doing all this stuff, but then we say, how do we know that it works? What are you doing to make it work? So in looking at our data just for the 2021-2022 school year, one thing that we really wanted to focus on is that we did not want consequences to be punitive. We really wanted them to have we wanted to restore, because we recognize that if you violate or you do something to harm somebody, say a student does something and they kind of harm the relationship with the teacher or another student, you have to come back to school in a day or 2. And so we thought it would really be best to talk about resolving and having restoration versus being punitive, because, you know, we want people to know that ultimately you have to work together because you're a part of the school community. And so what they have done this year at each level is that they've done mediations. And what mediations do is that if a cell member can get to a student or a group of students and they can provide mediation, what happens is that this decreases referrals to the office for suspension. This decreases out of school suspension, and students are able to remain at school. And when they are at school, they can engage, they can learn. And so this is what we really want. So far, these are the mediations that have been done. As you can see, in September, there were 42 at the elementary. October, they had 65. November, we have 53, December 25. And so we have the information here. I won't go through each one, but I'll also say that a part of doing restorative work is that we have circles. And so our cell coaches have also conducted circles. And in the circle, That is very important because often our students need to have a safe space. And so when we use the circle, they know that whatever happens in the circle, whatever is said in the circle, once the circle is disbanded, then they go about their ways. They can heal and they can have more positive relationships with their peers. Our discipline data this year so far for elementary in terms of suspension, because we really wanted to focus on decreasing suspension in school as well as out of school. So far for this year, elementary, they've had 4 in-school suspensions and they've had 4 out-of-school suspensions. And then at the middle high school, they've had 5 in-school suspensions and they've had 80 out-of-school suspensions. Now, please note that for the 80 suspensions that are issued, this is not necessarily 80 individual students, because, you know, sometimes we will have repeat offenders, but that's the total of suspensions that have been issued for both the buildings. And so we just wanted to kind of give a highlight of why we think SEL is important and why we want to really have a curriculum for teachers to use. So we have this this slide here that talks about what teacher SEL skills and teacher practices do and how they align, and you know what the outcome is. And the outcome is often more favorable than not. So as we thought about a SEL curriculum, one thing we knew what was important was that we needed to reach out to our teachers, because I am of the mindset, I always want to reach out to the teachers because the teachers are the one who is doing the work. So I never want to be the one to make the sole decision and not include the individual or individuals who are going to be a part of this. So what we did in October and November is that myself, along with the pupil services team, mainly the pupil services coordinator and school psychologist, we looked at 3 curriculums. They were character strong. One is called DESA and the other one is Panorama. So once we looked at the curriculums in December and January, we reached out to teachers at each building to ask them if they would like to be part of the selection process. And then they were able to hear from the different companies that we looked at, and then they were sent out a survey last week to talk about what their preference was. And so we really just provided information about the 2 curriculums. We narrowed it down to 2, which is the DESA, and the other one is Panorama. And here we just have what are the kind of selling points for each one. DESA is empirical, it's standardized, it's research-based, it's aligned with CASEL, which are those 5 components that I showed you for the framework. And it's primarily used for tier 1 and tier 2 social emotional learning. And it has assessments and screeners for kindergarten through 12th grade, which is a plus. It's strength-based and it really focuses on the students' positive behaviors. And the screener is effective. And the nice thing about their screener is that it only takes 1 minute for the students to complete. And then here we just kind of have what the cost is if we look to get so many licenses K through 8, the licenses through high school. And then also, you know, if we want to also get additional tools and resources for teachers. And then the next one is Panorama, and they really focus on building the students' competency skills in social emotional learning. They really look to create an environment where students can thrive, and they really help develop those skills so that students are better able to navigate in their school environments. But it also has a component where it helps to develop in the teacher and the staff's well-being, which again, we think is very important. Our teachers need to have the social emotional learning skills as well as our students, because if the teachers are grounded in it, then they'll do a much better job of teaching it to the students and retaining the skills. And so again, it's research-based, it's aligned with CASEL. it can be integrated into some systems we currently have here, which are Skyward and Swiss. We can integrate it with fast bridge assessments. It has intervention tracking. It's got the screener for students. They have district-wide reporting options. And they also look at the data through an equity lens. This is their pricing per year, which they are much more expensive than the DESA. But one thing that Panorama does offer that DESA doesn't quite have yet is that they have a whole warehouse of materials and resources that teachers can can look at to create lessons for students. So that is kind of a plus that they have, but as you can see, you also will pay for that. And so our next thing is that we want to choose a curriculum that we are going to pilot with those selected teachers for fourth quarter. And then we will look to see how we will roll this out district-wide moving forward for the 22-23 school year. So are there any questions? I know that was long, so thank you for bearing with me.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so I know there's gonna be probably numerous questions that are getting ready to come through. So I think I seen who all actually has questions. I saw Stacy's hand. Anita, so we'll go Stacy, Anita.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
Okay.
Hi.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Thank you for this presentation. I wrote down a lot of notes, but one question I have, when you were talking about the what we're currently doing with SEL and how it is how it correlates with the decrease in suspension data, can you just go back and talk about that a little bit? How maybe give us a narrative like of how the circles, if there's an offense where there is something that would normally be a suspension, since we're trying to lower those rates, is that student go into mediation? Are they going into a circle? How do you walk that? Can you walk us kind of through how that would be? And is that offense that would normally be a suspension, does it still go into our data, our discipline data?
Thank you for that question. So one of the things I mentioned is that we had been working, and not we as in I, but my cell team. So at the high school level, it's going to be Mr. Winston, Ms. Bishop, and they work with Ms. Probst, because Ms. Probst is kind of the discipline person in the building, but they really reviewed what the current referrals were. They look to make them more focused on social emotional learning, again, not being punitive. So as you stated, so if you have a student who teachers feel are having an issue, normally they probably would get sent to the office. You would get a referral written up in Skyward. But what happens is that the student will come to the area where the social emotional learning specialist is. One thing I will say is that the specialists have good relationships with the staff in their buildings, so they know that they are a go-to. So often the staff will reach out and say, hey, I'm having concerns with so-and-so. Do you think you could have a talk with him or her? Let's try to find out what's going on, and we'll have some resolution. And so, for instance, the student would go and see Mr. Winston. So then this is not something that would carry out into a full referral. Mr. Winston talks to the student. He connects back with the teachers. They talk about how they're going to resolve it. And the other thing that's great is that the majority of the time, the teacher is brought back into the conversation, because the teacher and the student have to make sure they repair their relationship. They have to understand that they have to work together. And this is something that we have found helps to really build those relationships. And what we're finding is that students are becoming more trusting. And see, once they become more trusting of their the adults that they're working with, then they become more open to being engaged. And again, we try to find that one adult. They have those courageous conversations and say, hey, you know what? You're not going to like all your teachers, but guess what? For example, you just heard the big spill about the block schedule. You got to be with this teacher for the whole semester. So we got to decide how we're going to work it out. But they do that, so then we cannot we don't want to have the referrals that ultimately will lead to the suspension. And what we're finding is that for most of the suspension data that we're getting, and when students are getting suspended and they're out of school, it's really for those kind of like hard things. You had a fight. That is something we can see. That is factual. We'll suspend you for that. But if you had a disagreement with your teacher, you go see the sales specialist, you guys have a restorative conversation, and then you go back to it, you get a do-over, if you will. And that really helps to build empathy, not only for the student, but for the teacher as well. And if we have students who need, I'll call them our more love students. So students that need more love, at each building, the specialists have groups. At the elementary school, Mr. Brown has 22 young males that he works with in grades 3 through 5, and they meet together several days a week, and they talk about different things. They focus on social emotional learning. They talk about goal setting. They talk about problem solving. At middle school, this year, Mr. Tucker currently is focusing only on 6th graders, with the thought to also have those identified groups for 7th and 8th graders as well. But what we saw was that the 6th grade students, especially our males, they had more of an immediate need. And so he worked with them initially once a week on Thursdays during their flex time at the middle school when they had it. And he had up to 25 students. But then when we had to do some shifts because of staffing and COVID, and he didn't have access to the students, what he's done now is that he is in all the lunch hours. So those students that he had the relationship with, that's when he touches base with them. He does catch up, and he's in contact with the teachers to see what's happening. And then even Mr. Winston, he has his group of students too. And some other things he's doing, he started a mentoring program where he has high school seniors who come over to the middle school, and they work with students. They help them with tutoring, they kind of have those talks with them. So kind of like, big brother, big sister type of thing. They do check-ins. Again, they have their small groups, and they really work on mediations, not only being between the student and the teacher, but also being between peers, because a lot of times our students have issues with each other. So did I answer your question, Ms. Smith?
I don't think so, but I think I framed it wrong. But you gave me more information than I had. I do have one other question early on about the intervention groups that you were talking about. Now, you touched on, they seem to be pretty rigid, and I'm wondering if there is any, are these children referred, or are children able to self-select? Because I think now, just after all of this COVID, we have more than just our high flyers, the more not normalized, there more kids are dealing with maybe lighter things. Is there a way for those kids to self-select to be an intervention group for social emotional, whereas they've never presented a problem, but they're having a problem with this transition back in? Are there any groups for those students?
So the groups are, I should clarify that the groups aren't necessarily just for our more loved kids. The groups are for students who need to engage. That we have students who don't often participate in activities, but they have a group because they have a space and they have a place where they can be with their peers, and they have a chance to talk. They get to talk about different things. Again, this is really around building those relationships. So it's not just for the more loved kids, but we definitely support the more loved kids. And in response to your question earlier, you asked that because they have the groups, or we have the coaches who intervene, does that curb the referral process? So yes, most of the time it does. It doesn't make it to the AP to become a referral to ultimately become a suspension, or you receive some other type of consequence. That's kind of the stopgap.
Right. No, I was using referral. I was in two different ways, but I understand what you're saying. I was just saying, is there an opportunity for students to self-refer themselves to some sort of?
Yes, they do a lot of self-referrals. Yes.
Okay. for
That's how they
support,
get a lot.
not a
Yeah,
behavior,
yes,
but yeah,
yeah,
okay. All
yeah.
right,
They get a lot of
thank you.
self-referral.
Mrs.
All right.
Antonelli.
Anita, did you have a question?
Yeah, just one really quick question for Mrs. Altendari. Thank you for the report. It was definitely enlightening to understand what's going on with the SEL program. I'm just wondering, I don't know if I missed it or not, but did you give a recommendation on which one of the curriculum you think would be best for the program?
So we are compiling our notes. We're compiling the results from our teacher selection group to see what they prefer. So the core team, we kind of had a consensus of which one we like. But again, because the teachers are going to be the ones using it, we really want to have their input, and we're really going to go with what their decision is. And we just understand, I don't want to call it limitations, but we understand that if they pick one over the other, what we will have to shore up in or what we will have to supplement with, depending on what curriculum we go with. So once we get those results compiled, then we'll have the recommendation for what we are hoping will be approved for the district to purchase. But we just wanted to share the two options that we had looked at.
That's great. Thank you so much. Just really quickly, this may be a question for you, Dara, or for Kevin. Do we know that we have the funds available for either one of the curriculum? And secondly, I'm looking at when you are desiring to start it in the fourth quarter, I do believe. And especially with the Panorama, it's a one-year contract. Will this contract then span 2 school years if you elect to start it in the last quarter of the school year?
Yeah, so if we start it if we do our pilot for April, then the contract would span to whether we did the 1 year or the 2 year, it would be for it would be for April through the end of 2023 or April through the end of 2024.
Okay.
Depending on what we select that.
It will put two budgets.
Yes, because remember the pilot, we're only going to pilot with a small group. It's really going to be 6 to 9 classrooms that we're piloting with. But what we're looking to purchase is going to be for district-wide implementation, licenses for K through 8, and then licenses for 9 through 12. If we did Panorama, and then for DESA, it's K-12.
Okay.
And then purchasing the licenses.
Dara, thank you so much.
I was just going to ask, if I may, Dr. Beadle, if the funds that we get from ESSER can be used, the ESSER funds be used to support either one of the programs that gets finally decided in the end.
I think so, but Kevin, that would probably be more of a Kevin question, but I was thinking the same exact thing, that we potentially could use our ESSER dollars to be able to pay for this and stuff, but Kevin.
Yes, that is certainly accurate on a short-term basis. And then we just have to decide, how to make it something sustainable. If it's if it's a curriculum that we need to continue to purchase beyond the 2-year, window that we're talking about now. So we're having those conversations as part of the budget planning process.
All right. My piece is this. Okay, so this is a 1-year subscription, right? Comes out to be about $13,000. Yeah, it comes out to almost about $13,000 a year. So we would have to renew the subscription every year for that one, Dara, for DESA? Will we have to renew it every year to be able to do it in the licensing?
I'm going to let my Pupil Services Coordinator speak to that, because she's just fresh off a meeting with them last week.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Dr. Beadle. There is actually a 2-year subscription for DESA as well. And I do know that by choosing the 2-year over just the 1 year, it is actually a cheaper fee So there
Okay.
is a little bit more of a discount with that. Again, I know we're still looking at the results from our teacher feedback survey. But when we bring this up again, we can definitely get you that information regarding that 2-year subscription and take a look at that difference in cost.
Okay, yes, because I was looking at that and seeing that, and then for the Panorama, my question is, you've got the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, but then now you have two different components to it. So do we just only pick one? Like the first one is 18,350 for 1 year. Then you have something on the bottom for another 9,950. Are those combined, or it's either one or the other?
They're separate. So the first one, I believe, is the one taking a look at there's staff
Student.
screeners as well, and data as well as student. And the
Mhm.
second option, I believe, is just students.
Student
that's
only.
different. Yep, student.
Student only. Okay. So with that being said, so whichever one is decided, it is either going to be a 2 year or a 3 year or 5 year, because I don't think we want to do anything for just 1 year because we won't be able to see the results. One thing that I do want to be able to do is whichever one we do choose, being able to ensure that we're getting report data back on that on a consistent level. So then that way we know that the program is actually really working, and if there's some things that we need to tweak. And once we purchase this for like the 3-year contract, do we like own the curriculum parts to it, or after that 3-year cycle, we're gonna have to renew it all over again and repurchase?
That's an excellent question. I don't
Yeah,
let me answer that
yeah.
question.
So I'm not really sure, but typically when we purchase licenses for whatever period of time, if we have access to different resources, like they're stored, but teachers are able to access. So a lot of times they're able to download and they're able to like have materials and have access to that. But I think there is a way for teachers to be able to like store materials that they want to go back to and use. So I think that like if they did that, then, they would have access to it so that if we decided that we didn't want to renew after 3 years, at least you still have something to use moving forward.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Dara, because that was my other question too, because I just wanted to ensure, was this going to be an ongoing cost every year, or will we get to a point to where we own and have access to, and then be able to utilize ourselves without the ongoing costs? All right, board members, any other questions? All right, thank you so much, man. This was an excellent presentation on SEL and kind of where we are. We'll as a board, we'll be looking forward to seeing which one of these programs that you'll be presenting to us, which one you would like to be able to choose. That would be best for staff and students. All right, let's go on to item D. So now let's go on to this is Dr. Dari, our discussion for the alternative middle school site, Village Academy.
Dara, Kara has your presentation as well, if you wanted to pull it up.
Okay, Kara, can you drive for me this time around? Thank you.
I would be happy to, madam. Here, no worries. You bet. Let me just make sure I'm going to get the screen up, and then it's this one. Here. As we're spooling here.
I guess I'm gonna jump in real quick while we're doing that and you're trying to get the presentation together. Remember, community members, if you do have a comment, please make sure that you put that in the chat for community comment, and Mr. Linsky is monitoring the chat for that.
All right, so thank you again for the opportunity to present. So this is a proposal for an alternative site program for students here in the school district of Brown Deer. Kara, next slide, please. So currently we have some students. For right now, we are really focused on our middle school students who are having some challenges navigating their current school environment. It can be a multitude of things. Some things we have identified is the school schedule, the physical space, and for some students, just a challenge with attending to instruction from their educators. There have been numerous supports provided for students to be able to access the environment, to be able to attend and to engage. But despite that, ultimately, we have some students who right now, they need something different. They need a smaller setting. They need additional supports that can help better equip them with the skills they need to regulate their emotions. And we see that dysregulation of students really can result in them being removed from the learning environment. As we know, this causes misinstruction. They don't have the engagement, the interaction, and ultimately it impedes their academic and social emotional progress. And so we really feel that we have a group of students who they have a need for this specially designed environment. And this space is really gonna create a place of safety, acceptance, and ultimately the opportunity to thrive. Next slide. So the rationale is that we want to have continuation of uninterrupted instruction for students. Again, if students are suspended, they're removed, they are not, they're not learning. And so we want them to be able to have what they need, but we also want them to have what they need in an environment where they can be productive. If we have them in this smaller space, number one, it's going to decrease transportation costs for offsite alternative seats that we currently have for some students. It will eliminate us paying for seats that we can't use because there is not availability in the alternative program when we need it. The Director of Pupil Services will have the autonomy to provide daily oversight, evaluate and change offerings as needed. We have alternative learning opportunities for students who need redirection based on our service delivery model. The students will remain close to campus. They will have access to school activities and other resources as needed, and they will have an increased ability to build relationships with our Brown Deer staff. And how will we evaluate this, or what are our expected results? Our student success is going to be evident in 3 primary categories. It's going to be academic, it's going to be socio-emotional, and it's going to be personal and social consciousness development. So our academic success, we're going to measure that by students attaining or having growth in grade level academic expectations. Their socio-emotional success will be visible because we are going to see a decrease in disruptive behaviors. We're going to see them being able to not only develop, but really engage in healthy intrapersonal and interpersonal relationships. And they're going to have those coping skills that they need that will eliminate this dysregulation that we are seeing. And then personal and social consciousness, it'll be evident in our students because we're going to see them using that language. We're going to have them. They're going to have a self-improved concept, and they're going to have a desire for agency where they're going to learn how to advocate for themselves about what their needs and what their wants are. And this is also going to transfer to not only what the student is doing in this environment, but also we should see some change at home with our family dynamics and in the community at large. So, in terms of what it would cost, what we wanted to do is we wanted to share with you what we paid last year for our students who required an alternative site and what we can get for our students having an alternative site here in our community. So last year for the 2021 school year, we have 4 students that attended off-site alternative locations. For tuition, for those 4 students, you can see the figure. We paid $196,000, $856.89. That is just for tuition. When we have students attending these sites, we have to transport them there. Transportation was $50,000, $50,400 for a total cost of $247, $256.89. So as we look to launch in April for through the 2023 school year, we are looking to service 12 to 15 students. When we are looking at personnel costs, we're looking at a range from $145,500 to $165,000. When we talk about facilities, we're looking at a cost of $35,000. When we look at equipment, technology, furniture, things we need to make that optimal learning space for our students, that's going to be about $15,000. So the total would be $195,500 to $215,000, depending on what model we pick for personnel. But we still see a cost savings, and it's at the bottom where we still would save $32,256 to $52,256, where we're servicing more students. They're here with us in the community, and we're able to make some savings. Next slide.
Yeah, only I wanted to jump in real quick, Dara. So are you really telling us that for 4 students, we spent $247,256.89? So we roughly spent $60,000 per student to be able to do this year?
That was last school year, and that's not for the students we have this year. Currently, we have 4 students off-site. We know for tuition costs, what we spend out is $145,000. And then we also have our transportation that we pay for those students. So we are spending less on the tuition side this year because we're only using one agency. But again, when we purchase those seats from the agency, the seats are prepaid. So for example, we purchased 5 seats for CISA. As I indicated, we currently have 4 students in those seats, but we actually had a need for a student to attend the site, but they did not have availability in their middle school program. So we basically had to find a way to provide services for this student who we knew would not be successful in this educational environment that we currently have. So right now we've expended the $145,000 because the seat is roughly close to $29,000. And again, they're prepaid. And then we have transportation, and depending on the carrier, we just kind of put an average, but it's basically $35 each way.
So to kind of add on to Dr. Beadle's question, what type of facility are these students going to at that rate?
So the facilities that we are using now, it's called Parkway. It's in West Dallas, and it looks like it used to be like an old recreational center, but they have 2 different programs. They have a elementary program for students roughly around 3rd grade through 8th grade, and then they have a high school program. So they also have another site, Ozaki Community High School, which is the old Mequon Recreation Center. And so it's just like some classrooms. They have different opportunities to do different things at the Ozaki Community High School. I know they do some hands-on things. They do some community projects, but the facilities they're basic. They meet the needs of the students. So it wouldn't be anything that you would, it wouldn't be Beverly Hills 90210 like, but it meets the needs of the students, and they service students from different school districts. So that's why each district purchases so many seats that they think they may or may not use. But whether you use the seats or not, we want to ensure that if we need it, we have it. And so this year we happen to have 4 students of the 5 seats. Now, the tuition for last year, we also did not just have students at the CISA 1 agency, we also had students at Cradwell, and then we had a student at Norris.
Okay, yeah, that's just, man, an astronomical number. To kind of follow on with that, in looking through the materials, I don't see anything stating what our solution would be as far as facility. So you said it's in our community, but what would be the solution for that?
So we have connected with New Life Worship Center, which is at 6380 West Dean Road, which is down the street. It is a church. They have rooms that we can use as classrooms. They have kitchen space. They have restrooms. So basically, we will have use of the whole facility for 5 days a week to operate the program.
And Ms. Robinson, just to provide a little historical context for you, our AOL program that's currently housed here in the high school used to be at a different church in the community. So we've had some experience with partnering with a church in our community for an offsite experience for our students. So I'm saying that to say it's not a new experience for us. But I'll also add, in having numerous conversations with Ms. Antandari as she tries to place students who are in need. Once I learned that we were paying in advance for a seat that we might not have access to me, in my estimation, in terms of being fiscally responsible, it made more sense for us to be able to manage our own seats with our own people, which is why we are bringing this proposal to you this evening. So I wanted to add that piece as well, and I will let Dara continue on with her presentation.
Carrie, you can go to the next slide, please. So for Village Academy, we are looking to start for 4th quarter, which starts April 4th through the end of the year. And then we are looking for approval through the 2022 to 2024 school years. When we talk about what our personnel will be, we want to have what we call a Dean of Culture and Community. This is going to be our individual who is really addressing those social emotional learning needs. Will address the discipline that the students will require. But something that is really unique to what we want to do is that we really want to have a collaboration and connection with community. So that is going to be the individual that is really truly the face of the school, and that is going to help us to establish those community partnerships for those individuals who are going to come in and work with our students. When you looked at the personnel costs, the reason that we had 2 figures is because we could look to have a dually certified teacher, or we could look to have 1 regular ed and 1 special ed teacher. We want to have a transition behavioral support specialist, which is essentially an educational assistant who would be there on site to really help us with transition, but also to help address behavior that students may have. And then we also want to work with a consultant. So we do have Pastor Davis, who joined the meeting, who is the pastor of the New Life Worship Center, but we also have Mr. Derek Rogers, who has been doing some consulting with myself and really providing some really great direction and guidance, having been an individual who not only started, but actually had a successful alternative school program. And then the other thing is that we need the community educators. So again, because we really want to work with our students on developing this critical consciousness for them to really evolve as individuals, we really want people in the community to come in to work with them to really help us in this process. Next slide, please. So we just went over what we would need. If we could think it, we wanted to make sure we accounted for it. So again, we have our space. It's going to let us have that safe space where we can do counseling. We can have individual and group therapy for physical recreation. We have been told that we can have access, but we also are still running parallel to our school district. So for physical education, we can work out schedules where we can bring the students here to have access to the gym, to have the opportunity to participate in those classes. We have space there for gatherings, for circles, for daily rituals. We just really talked about the other equipment we needed to be able to create a great environment, but also for students to be able to have the instruction they need, because we do expect that they will focus on their academics and that they will improve in that way as well. Next slide, please. When we talk about what our instructional design will be, we really are looking at doing a blended, personalized approach. We want to make sure we infuse culturally responsive teaching practices as well as those concepts. And we're also going to look at making sure that the experience is digital, but it's experiential as well, because research tells us that people learn by doing. So we're going to ensure that they are having an experiential experience in education, but we also have the opportunity, because it's a smaller setting, for students to really have that explicit instruction and really have a chance to dive deep into what it is they're learning, and for the instructor to be able to really help them to develop the skills, or to help kind of form the foundation, or kind of close those gaps that they are seeing. Next slide, please. Then we have our schedule that we are proposing. One of the things we notice is that some of our students are struggling because of the length of the school day. So we do not plan to have the traditional school schedule. We want to operate the program from 8:30 to 2:30, and even thinking about where our students are now. For our students who are in our high school program offsite, they currently have a 3-hour schedule. Our students who are in middle school, they have a 5-hour schedule. So they understand that some students just don't do well with the traditional school day. And so we really want to, we want to acknowledge that as well. But this is kind of what our proposed schedule is, what we plan to do. And we really want to incorporate project-based learning and really do a lot of inquiry-based learning, as well as our traditional content instruction. Next slide, please. And so we're going to utilize peer review assessments. We're going to do a lot of constructive feedback. We're going to have value added measures, especially for content related to progress monitoring, really to see how much the student is growing. Because again, we don't just want to start something and not really have evidence that it's working. And then for that social emotional piece, we're going to use some non-traditional as well as traditional methods. Students will be engaged in doing presentations where they're going to really be involved in their own journey, their own growth process, and they're going to have a presentation that they do at the end of each semester. This is the schedule that we have laid out for what it looks like. Next slide, please. And we're looking for approval to operationalize this for fourth quarter, and then to have it moving forward for the next school year. And another thing to note is that this is not a jail sentence, if you will. So our idea is not that, students will come here and they will just stay here, the duration. But, if we have some students who they have to stay here 1 school year or 2 school years, it's really about what's beneficial for them and what they need in order to excel. So we just really wanted to make that a point of clarification. Next slide. So thank you again for listening. Are there any questions?
Okay, board members, questions for Ms. Antadari?
You talked a little bit about the personnel and kicking off the program beginning in April. Are the personnel that you bring over in April, are they the same individuals who are going to work the program in the following school year?
Yeah, so ideally, so for our Dean of Culture and Community, we already know who that person is. That is a current employee. So we anticipate that they will be working for this school year. What we were thinking is because we know April is not that far away. We really want to post for the position for what we want, especially for the dually certified teacher. And so we are thinking to post for these positions so that those people who start with us will end with us, but we also have some alternate solutions around what we would do if we weren't able to get those specific individuals that we want. We had a thought of offering it up to like current middle school teachers, but understanding that we are so short-staffed all way around, we didn't really want to take when there really was just enough staff coverage as is. So our hope is that whoever we start with is who we continue with. And so this would be added personnel to our district.
Thank you, because I think it's really important for some consistency, to a large degree, having, the students who are interacting with a consistent group of staff that they will see where they will develop relationships, and thereby, I believe you begin to see, some of that growth take place. So that was the premise to where that question was coming from.
All right, Lisa, you had a question?
Yes, I did. In looking at that schedule, it appears that there's only 2 hours a day allocated towards curriculum instruction. I just don't see how that aligns.
Content instruction, it would be like, so it's 2 allocated times for content, which would specifically be reading, language arts, and math. And then when you look to see the like community based, those are content as well, but those will be subjects that we could wrap up into things that really kind of have an environmental connection. So those are things around science, what's happening in our community. Those are things that'll be social studies. So they will get that as well, but we called it community education, but we're happy to change it to content. They will get the 4 cores for sure.
All right, anybody else have any other questions? Ms. Peterson?
Yes, I have a couple questions that kind of came out of this. They're kind of all over the place, so my apologies in advance. My first question is, as I'm looking at the personnel, I'm not seeing any staff associated with security. I know that this is a church, I do understand that, but at the same time, there are things that are in place at the Brown Deer District to ensure that our students are safe. The doors are locked. There's buzzing in. There's trying to find out, going straight to the office, what that person is in the building for. Has the safety and security of the students that will be in this other facility been addressed with either the church or amongst the team that is working to make this happen?
Yes, it has. So the facility is a locked facility. We would be the only people in the facility Monday through Friday. So in order to, if people were coming, they would be coming to access the facility because they're looking for us. So you couldn't just walk in So we already talked about like what's the process for students even coming in the morning. We'll have a check-in process. That's where we have our support specialists to help us with getting the students in, getting them processed in, attendance taken, getting them up and ready for the day's activity. So yes, the building is secure, it's locked, and the only people who would be able to let people in would be like our Dean of Culture and Community and that other support specialist staff.
Great, great. That's good to hear. My next question kind of piggybacks on Felita's question when she talked about the personnel and who would actually be still involved in the upcoming years. And I'm just curious, particularly for this fourth quarter, what type of impact will it have on the actual district with the moving of the personnel over to this new location, taking into consideration the staff shortages that we've talked about consistently throughout this year?
So I just want to clarify that for only one position would be removing a staff member to come and work over. And in talking with that building administrator, they do have coverage to fill in that gap for that person. As I indicated, we are not even though we wanted to be able to offer it up to current staff at middle school, we understand the shortages. So we want to post for the position for somebody to come and work for the district. So because we knew even if we had somebody who wanted to come over, we still would have to help fill the spot that we were taking from. So it just makes more sense to reach out because my thought is that there are people who they may not be looking for a traditional school assignment, if you will, but something like this might be just the thing that they're looking for or what they're interested in. So I think it's in our best interest to post for the position as it is.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that clarity. How will the student, what are the steps or the plans that the student could potentially make their way back to the district? I see we talked about the quarter and then the 2 years movement, but I didn't see anything that helped work the child back into the district, if that is a possibility. Can you, real quickly, you don't have to take a lot of time, Dara, but can you elaborate a little bit on what that would look like and how that child would potentially be able to work themselves back to the actual district?
So our thought is that the student will stay with us for at least a semester. So potentially for students that we have now, that we have for fourth quarter, they could stay with us for fourth quarter, and then they would stay with us for the semester. A lot of the work and the skills that they are going to be gaining are going to be those skills to really help them improve their social emotional intelligence, if you will. It will help them learn how to better regulate their emotions. And so then they are going to present, at the end of the semester to say, this is the growth I made. These are the things that I needed help on. This is where I am now. And then they'll be ready to transition back to the school district.
Okay.
So it's going to be on a semester by semester basis. It would be nice to do it by a quarter, but a quarter essentially is only 9 weeks, and you really don't even start to see change until 9 weeks. So our thought is that they would have the opportunity to look at it by semester.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you. And then just finally, I'm just curious to know, and you probably can't answer this with future students, but with the students that were in the other program, the 4 that you referenced when you were doing your cost analysis, Was there any discussion, or can you talk to us about how they felt as related to leaving the mainstream of Brownder School District and going to another location to learn? Did they have any initial concerns? Were there, can you elaborate? I know you can't on the future, but on those students that were in a different location previously, is there any way that you can tell us a little bit about their feelings as they were transitioned to this new location for
So
learning?
I can speak about one student in particular who really would like to be back in the school community. The other students that were included in what you just saw for our costs for last school year, they had been in program previous to me arriving. So these are students who have been in these facilities for, well, I don't want to say facilities because it makes it seem like it's clinical, but they've been in this learning environment. And really, for those students, they were in the learning environment for various reasons, but really, it was really around the environment. Like, it's just very challenging for them to be able to navigate the school environment that we have here. For one of those students who, like I said, was there previous to me coming and is now a middle schooler, what we were looking at this semester was helping to transition him back because this student is ready to come back. So a lot of times it's about when they're ready. For one student that I have, they want to be back all the time, but this environment it's just too much for them to handle. They can't handle it. And when they are here, it really does more harm for them and others than it does good. And so we understand that this is a student with some serious needs, and this is the type of environment that they need.
Okay. All right, Dara, thank you so very much for putting up with all my questions here.
All right,
Not a
Ms. Roberts.
So I have a few questions as well. I see the cost for the 22-23 school year, but what would be the cost for the remainder of this school year?
So we talked a little bit about that, and I'm going to let Mr. Climate address that.
It's a little bit up in the air, just depending on who we find. And if we do find that candidate that will go forward, we have about 42 days in the semester. And so depending on the person that we get, it may end up being like more of a contracted piece for this last part of the year, and then, more like a contractor, and then have a full teacher contract going forward. So that may impact the cost of, whether benefits are involved or not. Again, it's just to see what's out there and who the people are that are interested. But between the estimated cost that we were estimating for that last quarter to be in that $35,000 range, we're right now we're planning on, I think, one teacher and an aide, and then the facilities cost for the 2 months. But again, we think it's important enough. We know the savings are going to come down the road, so we do think it's important enough that if we were to find the right people, we'll have to look at that. If it's more of a long range decision then, and we'll address those costs in this quarter as we need to. So.
Okay. My next question is, so for the 4 current students who are at these other locations, will they remain where they are, or will they be brought to this location?
Those students will remain where they are because of the 4 students. 1 is middle school, 3 are high school, and we would have them remain where they were.
And how?
Okay. So then if this facility is mainly focused on middle school, then does that mean that we will potentially be paying for the middle school students as well as those high school students in?
No, no, it doesn't. But we wouldn't bring them in here for 4th quarter is what I mean. Now, moving forward for the upcoming school year, our thought was that we would expand it to 6 through 12. But we understand that when we bring high school students in, because high school is credit-based, there are just certain steps that we have to take about how we're implementing instruction and how we are providing education for the students. But the thought was that we wanted to open it up to 6 through 12, but starting out just for this fourth quarter, we just wanted to focus on middle school because really that's where the highest priority or the highest need is right now.
Okay, yes, so I mean, good that you're thinking of expanding it, but considering those other factors with credits and things like that, it could be a possibility that we still end up paying these other costs for those high school students. So,
Potentially not. Like I said, the one student that we have happens to be a middle school student who they're looking at transitioning back into the district. Of the 3 high school students, one will only remain there through the end of this school year. Then they will be transitioning back to the regular high school. Another one is graduating. And then the other one that we have, we could look to bring to our new alternate site. Because our thought is that we really want to provide for our own and we really want to educate our own. But
okay.
we just wouldn't take them out now. Those that are in the facilities now, they will remain through the end of the year. And then moving forward for the new school year, yes, they are welcome to come to Village Academy.
Okay. My other question goes towards with these being middle school students with the adjusted schedule for the day. Has there been any communications with, because I'm assuming if we're talking about starting this in April, there are already students who have been identified that would be candidates for this program. So have there been any conversations with parents around what this adjusted schedule would mean for them and their students and what happens with the 6th grader at 2:30 until parents may be home?
So we, once this is approved and we identify those students and those families, we will have a discussion with the families. We will talk about what this opportunity is. They are going to be an integral part of the Village Academy, so that parent engagement, that parent communication, things of that, like when they first start, they're going to have like a family meeting. So, but we're not going to have those conversations yet until we know it's something that we could do, because we wouldn't want to get anybody's hopes up and we're not able to provide it.
Okay. All right, I think that's pretty much, my list is good then with the other questions that were already asked. Thank you.
All right, Lisa.
So I just want to clarify. So we are planning for the next school year to not prepay for seats like we have been as a past practice?
Right. Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Stacy, you had a question? You're on mute.
Okay, no, I know. Let's see. My question kind of was this parent piece, and I hear you saying that you're gonna maintain that they're an integral part of this, because so there'll be parent contact all along the way. Because I was thinking that, if you put kids in there, you really need to make sure that there's a concerted effort with maybe a parent liaison piece, especially if you transition them back, as you transition them back into school, so that they, when they get back and they have like that, still have a support. Did you guys talk about how you're going to support the kids that the families that transition back and to the regular ed?
Yes, when that time arrives, those are the things that we will discuss. And again, we're going to have a transition back process. So it's not like, so in our minds, if we are saying that you are going to transition semester to semester. Like 4 to 5 weeks before the transition, before the semester is ending, we're having those conversations, we're setting that up. We know what that looks like. If we have middle school students, we are in talks with the middle school counselor. The student is getting ready to come back. They have the opportunity to know. And again, remember, this program is running parallel to the school. So as it's gonna be around what the students needs, but there are gonna be some similarities and things that students know about. So they're gonna still have that connection to the school. They're gonna be in talks with the counselor about what classes they're transitioning into. If there is a student that has an IEP, they're gonna be having a conversation with the case manager about the student is coming, these are the things they worked on, they're gonna get prepared. So it's not like it'll be the weekend before second semester starts and then they just kind of show up. It's a process that we have to transition them back because that's very important. We don't want it to kind of be like I said, this is not something that we are viewing as something that's punitive or we're throwing you here because you didn't. What we are saying is that we have students who right now in this time and space, it's difficult for them. And what can we do to provide them what they need to be successful with the idea that they will be coming back to the full school community.
And let me just add to Ms. Smith, it's also important to note that parents are always an integral part of the conversation on any side of this conversation. So whether it's, hey, Johnny has an infraction and hopefully it won't warrant a suspension, but if it does, we always make contact with our parents to notify them of what transpired and what the potential consequences will be for the student. I think in this case, what will be helpful for us is to be able to show our parents that we have a plan B, if you will, for that continued instruction for our students in a smaller setting. And
No, that really wasn't the question about that. It was just really bringing them into the village, making sure that once they get over there, not before
correct,
with the
but that's
infraction.
a pre-conversation we would have with parents as well, so that we can understand that they're on board with us in this process before we move anybody anywhere. And that's an important part of what we're trying to do as well.
Right, and because I think they play just such a good role and a big role in the
Absolutely.
modification. So I
Absolutely.
think that would be, okay, thank you. I did have one other question for Ms. Atandare. When you have the staffing with the two, like the option to have a regular ed and a special ed or a dual, is that because it's just we may not be able to get two people, or did you just want one? Because I was just thinking another body might be helpful, but if there was a reason behind why there would just be one person with dual, or we just, how, with the way the environment is with staffing, is that why the difference between one or two?
Yeah, so in the ideal world, what we really want is the one reg ed and the one special ed. But if we were having difficulty with being able to do that, or if we needed for fiscal reasons, for financial reasons to look at a dually certified teacher, then that would be the route to go. So we wanted to present options in order to have instruction for our students. So those were the options that we had.
I was just
But
wondering.
ideally, we want the one regular ed and the one special ed.
Okay, perfect. And then just really quickly, what role did you say the pastor was doing? I just want to clarify what you had said.
I said he was here because we had meetings with him and he wanted to partner with the school district and really be kind of bring community into the school district and vice versa. And so this really offered us a chance and an opportunity to do just that, with him offering the space for us to have a program here.
Yes, thank him. Okay.
All right, any other questions? Oops, I'm sorry. Any other questions? I'm sorry. Any other questions? All right, would someone like to make a motion?
Dr. Beadle,
Yes,
to make a motion to approve the school district of Brown Deer Village Academy Alternative School Site beginning April 4th, 2022 through the end of 2022-2023 academic school year.
all right, thank you very much, Ms. Ashley. A motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second Dr. Beadle.
Okay, Ms. Dick, all right. Motion is made and seconded. All right, any other discussion?
Could I just add, Dr. Beadle, that this, what appears on the motion and what appear, I can see Lisa. What appears in the motion and what appears on the slide is slightly different. The initial request was going to be through the 2022 to the end of the 2024 school year, but we wanted to take an opportunity with the first year to do a thorough evaluation and then be able to come back and ask for the 2023-24 school year. So if you, I just wanted to clarify what you have seen in a previous slide and what actually appears on the actual motion sheet.
All right, but the motion sheet that but the motion sheet is correct.
It's correct. That is correct.
All right, okay, thank you. All right, so we already had a motion. We had a second. Any other further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye. All right, motion carries unanimously, 7-0. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Antadari, for all of the information that you provided us with SEL. And I think that would have probably answered a lot of different questions that a lot of individuals may have had in relationship to where we're at with our SEL program and how we're going to move forward in the future to be able to help our students. All right, next, let's go to our engaged and innovative staff, Mr. Clemick.
Good evening again. First of all, we have a couple of new hires to present to the board this evening as we continue to try to fill our few remaining vacant positions. Tonight, we have Kimberly Robbins before you as an elementary school special education teacher and Christopher Teague as a high school science teacher.
All right, would someone like to make a motion for approve the hiring of Kimberly Robbins?
Dr. Beadle, I'd like to make a motion to approve the hiring of Kimberly Robbins as an elementary school special education teacher for the 2021-22 school year.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Keys. The motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Dr. Beadle, I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you very much, Felita. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye. Felita, is that a hand up? Thank you. All right, motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Let's welcome Kimberly Robbins as an elementary special ed teacher. All right. Next, Mr. Clemick. Right, okay, and then so for
Mr. Teague.
Yep. All right, would somebody like to make a motion for the hiring of Christopher Teague?
Dr. Beadle, I'd like to make a motion to approve the hiring of Christopher Teague as a high school science teacher for the 2021-2022 school year.
All right, thank you very much, Anita. A motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second Dr. Beadle.
All right, thank you very much, Nicole. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye. All right, 7. All right, motion carries unanimously, 7-0 for the approval of Christopher Teague as a high school teacher. Like to be able to welcome Kimberly and Christopher to the Brown Deer team. Thank you so much, and we look for wonderful things to come from you and being able to help educate our children at the highest levels. All right, let's go on to item B, approval of resignations. Mr. Clemick.
Fortunately, we have no resignations this evening to present to the board.
Okay, sarcasm. All right.
Nope. No, believe me, that is not sarcasm.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm glad. I'm glad this is we don't have any. So, all right, thank you very much. All right, let's go on to item C, approval of retirements. Mr. Clemick.
Yes, this is that time of year as we start to have staff consider their future, and it is with a bit of a heavy heart that I am going to be bringing the name of Lisa Albers as a high school teacher who has submitted her intent to retire at the end of the 21-22 school year. I'll just add briefly, personally, I've known Lisa since I was a board member and working with her on the BDA. She's been a great partner for the district, and it's been great working with her. I know she's committed to students, and it will be a loss to the district, and we certainly appreciate her years of commitment to the district. And I think she is on the line and may want to maybe get her to say a couple things before the motion if you want.
There goes that shining face. Hey, Lisa.
If it would be okay, I just wanted to just say really quickly, I've been teaching at Brown Deer for 22 years. Actually did my student teaching in 1997 and did some practicums before that. I've even been in the community before that, worked at some restaurants in Brown Deer, and I've been planning this for a while, and it's been great. Brown Deer, I've grown with them. They've helped me. I love the students, I love the community, but you know, you get that time in your life and you got to be ready to snatch it up and move on, and it's time for me. So I just want to say thank you to the district and the board and everybody, and it's been a great ride. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Albers. And if I just may add, thank you for your commitment and dedication to our students and to BDEA. As district administrators, we knew we could call on you and ask questions and work things out when necessary. I appreciate your willingness to see all sides of the story as we had to think about some of decisions that we had to make in certain situations. And so we're always a straight shooter, always on the up and up. And we certainly are going to miss you as you continue on in your next journey in life. But no, you can come back and sub at any time. We'd be happy to have you.
I think Lisa's face said it all on that.
Right. Thank you so much, Lisa. We appreciate you.
Yeah. I guess on a personal note, Lisa, thank you so much for everything. Hey, especially with you working with my son, Todd. I mean, always had nothing but wonderful things to say about you, and you helped him along the way. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you from a personal level and stuff, and all the things that you've done, not only for my child, but for all of the other students here in Brown Deer as well too. With that being said, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the retirement of Lisa Albers?
Dr. Beto, I feel like I should not be making this motion based on what everyone just said. However, I'd like to make a motion to approve the retirement of Lisa Albers as a high school teacher effective June 6, 2022.
All right, thank you very much, Nicole. The motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Dr. Beto, I'll second. This is Anita Peterson.
All right, thank you very much. A motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Zielinski.
This is the other Lisa on the line. I just want to thank Lisa for all the meet and confers over the year. I've really appreciated your perspective and input. Thank you.
Any other further discussion? All right, hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raise hand and/or aye. Yeah. All right, motion carries unanimously 7-0 to approve the retirement of Lisa Albers. Thank you very much, Lisa. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And what would you have done if we didn't get a second? All right, thank you very much. All right, let's go on to item number 5, our engaged board and community to lead public comments. Ms. Zielinski, do we have anything in the chat?
Not pertaining to public comments. It was on the previous agenda topic.
All right. I think at this time, I usually always give everybody another moment or two and stuff, but we've been talking about this now since the very beginning.
I think we can
Going,
move on. Yep.
okay. All right. With that being said, no public comments. Our board retreat will be February 26th, 2022 in the middle school, South Commons from 9 to 12 p.m. And with that being said, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to
Sorry.
adjourn, Dr.
Oh,
Beadle.
Sorry, I was too slow on I'll make the second.
Okay, wait. Okay, so who made the motion?
Alita.
Polita, okay. Polita made the motion, all right, and seconded by Lisa.
Correct.
All right. All in favor with raised hand or aye? All right, motion carries unanimously 7-0. I now call this meeting adjourned at 8:38 p.m. Everyone have a wonderful remainder of your evening, even better remainder of your week. Thank you so much for taking this time out of your schedules to listen to the updates from the Board of Education for the District of Brown Deer. Stay safe, God bless, and stay warm. Thank you. Good night.